And this is the second edition of IFTS. And today I'm very pleased and glad to have a conversation with Jane Collins. She is well known in the field of theatre scenography, and she is conducting classes for our students during these days. And she is a professor of the Theatre and Performance at Wimbledon College of Art, and her productions were well known in UK. And she has traveled all over the world as a pedagogue and both as a designer. She has very close connections with Africa and have the production, the thousands, 10,000 several doors has been repeatedly performed, and it is a great pleasure to have with us to have a very short conversation about how she looks at the design part of theatre. And welcome, madam.
I'm very pleased to be here and to be talking to you.
And the main thing is, the problem is how we enjoy seeing. How we enjoy seeing things.
How we enjoy seeing things, that's quite interesting. Well, for a start, I'm going to correct you, because I'm not actually a designer. I'm a director. But I'm a director who works through the visual and through design. And I suppose I learned that because I had the luck to move from working in an institution which trains actors to an institution which trains theatre designers. And that opened my eyes to different ways of seeing theatre. And in effect, it resulted in producing a book about design and scenography. So I think it's an area of performance that is very shall I say, not understood, but isn't valued. I don't think we value the visual or the material in performance. In my talk to the presentations that I did here this year, I talked about how the assumption is that the actor is always the centre of attention, the focus of attention. And I'm interested in a theatre where the actor is almost part of a landscape, not just the single focus. And I think it's caused quite a stir amongst the actors here. They've all come up to me, they're all talking about it, all trying to disappear now, which is probably not what I meant. But I think it's had quite an effect on them to get them thinking about how they might use space and materials in a different way.
Whether we have to travel from director to designer or designer to director, how far it is different?
How far it is different? I think because I don't know about India, but in the UK, the training of directors is usually through drama departments, and it's very text-based. So as a director, you learn to understand text, to read plays, to dramaturgy, to how you place a play on stage. Design comes from a much more visual arts tradition, but there's a lot of conflict between the visual arts and drama, and theatre. There's a kind of big conflict between the two, and it tends to be unusual to find people who want to bring the visual and a visual sensibility, if you like, to the fore in theatre. Obviously, there are people like Robert Wilson. There are international stars who work through a visual language. But predominantly, theatre is word-based, I think, in Western theatre. I think Indian theatre has a whole other language, which I'm not cognizant of, and I wouldn't pretend to know about. But I think in Western theatre, it's very word-based. So for me, it was a big shift to kind of move into this field that we call scenography. So I would say, if I'm anything, I'm a scenographer, somebody who looks at the whole production, the whole space, not just the actor.
And one more thing is that Jane Collins has edited, along with Andrew Nisbet, a wonderful book on theatre and performance design. and which we all keep as the Bible of design students.
Oh, is it?
Because there is a lot of writings. He edited it brilliantly. There was a historical tradition of design also.
Yeah.
Comes to the latest people in the field.
I'll tell you how that book came about. It's a reader, so it contains all sorts of short articles from philosophy, from social sciences, from history, and from performance studies. Walter Benjamin, so essays that and tries to connect that to performance and makes you look at performance in a different way. And the reason was because. And it was published at the beginning of 2015 or something, I can't remember, but nothing had ever happened, that nobody had ever published like that before. There were books that were kind of readers in performance, some readers in sound, there weren't readers in sound, but there were readers in performance. There were books about performance, but there were books about design, but there wasn't something that brought performance and design together. And brought this, if you like, a kind of a broader philosophical perspective on performance and the visual in performance and the sonic. Don't forget the sonic, the sound in performance and the material in performance. And of course, the importance of space. And so we wanted to have something, and I'm delighted to hear that the young designers here, refer to the book that brought everything together. And it's a sort of foundational text, and it hopefully gives you indications of where else you can go to find more about the subject. Yes, that was why we brought it out.
And one more doubt is that if there is a colonial scene, post-colonial scene, and historical scene on the same object.
I think so. I think
for Indians, we have this colonial scene and post-colonial scene.
I think we have to say that. I think that's more and more coming into the fore in design and performance training in the UK. That we can no longer look at things simply. We can't look at things innocently anymore, particularly if you're British. We have to look at things and look at their history, the heritage, their history, the baggage that they carry. And that becomes part of what they are. And it's also a source of this new way of looking becomes a new way of making work. So those things have a different value. And it's a really interesting project, isn't it, to take an object and make a piece of theatre about it from different perspectives. What's the history of this perspective? In an Indian context, what's its perspective from a British context? In fact, there's quite a lot of work now happening about making, to get the students to rethink history, to rethink our own, if you like, colonial responsibility, but also to have a dialogue, to move on and have a dialogue, a productive dialogue, I think. I hope. Anyway.
The book that the French philosopher says about the society of spectacles.
Yes.
How this capitalist doctrines makes a society wander beyond these big spectacles, where we are losing the finer feelings of elements of each issue. Once this scenography and site-specific performances came, this spectacular is dominant. Did you see it?
I don't think the spectacular has to be dominant. I think there's a lot of work that is spectacle now is made, but I think work on the stage in a proscenium art is also spectacle. I think it depends on the nature of the work and the way in which the audience is being asked to look, and the engagement that the performance is offering the audience. That can, I have this phrase, knock the audience off their perch and interrupt, if you like, that circle of capital and that circle of spectacle. And I think we've seen it in some of the work. I think the work from South Africa by the Ghanaian performer wasn't spectacle. It was the work that was engaged with that space, was engaged with the environment, his body. It was kind of quite for the audience, it was a kind of humbling experience watching his vulnerability. At one point, he disappeared and there was just the space, which was a wonderful moment, and we were left to look at the space in a different way. I think that is a riposte to a kind of society of spectacle and a spectatorship that asks for a passive audience. I think we were invited to be engaged with that, with our bodies and with our hearts and with our minds. So yes, I think we can challenge the Broad's statement.
And Peter Brook says about empty space.
Yeah, there's no such thing as an empty space.
It seems to be the most potential space.
Yes, and I'm very. Peter Brook was amazing, and I don't want to actually. I would never criticise Peter Brook, but I would argue that there is no such thing as an empty space. Space is never empty. There is always something. It is filled with something always, and it's that as performers and directors and designers, it's what we're trying to draw out from the space. So I think his title has been superseded now.
He's an actor. For a director, actor is there. For a designer, is it a mass or a body? Moving mass. Especially for cinematography.
I think the word is, I talk about elements in a landscape. I think the performer is part of a landscape of the stage. And I wouldn't say a mass. I would say it's part of that landscape. And the landscape includes the space, the sound, the audience, the various perspectives that the audience are given, the smell, the atmosphere. And the performer is part of that. And sometimes maybe the central figure that draws our focus. At other points, we may be looking at something else. So I don't want to devalue the performer or the actor and the skill of the performer or the actor. But I'm interested in a more, and I think it's very interesting in terms of this festival, a kind of more a redistributed presence, a kind of, where in a post-anthropocentric way, that the performer is not the centre of attention all the time.
Here in Eastern Theatre, even a small theatre, people, something like a small platform.
Yes.
Will become Kailasam and the actor is Kailasam is the highest mountain.
Because
in Mahabharata.
Yeah.
So a small stool will do.
Becomes a mountain.
Yeah.
Because that's the imagination of the audience.
Yeah. And so the actor believes.
Yeah.
Even over Kailasam. But once you make Kailasam, the actor becomes small.
Yes.
Actor is there to see the Kailasam.
Yeah.
But here, actor is important.
Yeah.
That philosophical difference is there in the science, why we are doing it in Africa. Because graffiti is an art in Africa. Aboriginal people, graffiti they are throwing on the floor.
Right.
That has been converted to big designs later in the UK.
I'm not sure I completely understand the question. I'm not sure completely understand what you mean.
In Indian performing arts,
Yeah.
a small platform where an actor can stand and sit. It will be converted to the Mount Kailasam.
We can become a mountain. Yeah, because the audience accepts that convention.
Yeah. There is a silent agreement between the audience and the actor.
This is a mountain.
And the actor is becoming too big.
Yeah.
Too big than Kailasam.
Oh, I see. Right. Yes.
In the other case, it is in the reverse. You have to make Kailasam, and the actor has to look at it.
Has to come up to the size of the mountain.
Yeah.
I like your idea better. I like the idea that I think this idea. I think the notion of I think the idea that the play takes place in the head of the audience, and you set your conventions. And if the convention is that a small table, I'm going to stand on a small table and now I'm on the top of a mountain, that's the convention. The audience will understand that. And I don't think one's trying to
That actually
change.
gives actor enormous freedom to create.
It gives the actor a great freedom to create, and the audience a great freedom to think as well about things. But in theatre at the moment, particularly in the West, we have that. I'm on a table, I'm standing on a mountain, but we also have a multitude of other means of performance. We have virtual reality and augmented reality, and there are different soundscapes.
I'm reading it that question.
And all these things are converging on that actor and changing the relationship of that actor with that little table that he's standing on. Because the audience can actually go off onto the top of a mountain through the headsets or whatever, or through virtual reality or augmented reality things. So that's changing, and it's changing the nature of the contract with the audience. So it doesn't diminish one, it just says other things are happening, I think. And I think actors need to be changing to adjust to those new circumstances.
The semiotic existence, understanding everything. Semiotic existence of understanding.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not very articulate about semiotics. I don't like semiotics so much. I prefer to talk about elements because I think that there's a fixity about semiotics. Things mean certain things and then we fix them. And I'm more for a sort of fluidity. I like things that you're not quite clear what they mean. I like the ambiguity. I like the kind of things flow between things and nothing's ever completely fixed.
What about lighting?
Yeah.
Lighting, doing light design work.
Well, we were talking about this yesterday, actually. I think one of the things which is very exciting now, and work is being made now where light is no longer just as design is not a backdrop to the action, it is the action itself. So light is not a separate, light becomes a performer. Light's not just there to light the actors, light's there as a performing element itself. And the more you can bring lighting design and sound design and any other video design that you've got into the performance from the very beginning, so that you're making work with all those elements, the more exciting the work is, I think. So you have performers, you have light, you have video designers, you have sound designers, and work is kind of grows with all those people, with all those skills. Rather than we do a play, we put it on the stage, we bring the lighting designers in, they do the lights. We bring the sound designers in, they do the sound.
Is it wrong if a single designer can do all the things?
No, I'm saying I think this is a group of people. This is a multi-skilled,
We are going to Calicut before that.
Yeah.
How a place has been selected for a performance and it is transferred to a space.
A performance space.
Yeah. Any prerequisites or as per the place you are converting the space.
I think it depends on what you're doing, what you're looking for. I mean, if you're doing site-specific work, you quite often will walk around the space, and then it's actually the other way around. I think you walk around the space, and then you find the place that is particular for the kind of thing that you want to do. And then you by framing it, you turn it back into a performance space, if you like, by the frame that you put around it, i.e. where the audience is going to sit, or how the perspective that people are going to look at that space through. I mean, there are no rules. It depends on what you're wanting to do. what do you know, what's your objective? What kind of work are you making? We've been doing some work this morning with students, getting them to look at unusual spaces around the campus, places that you don't normally go to, that are not inhabited or we call maybe abject, that are not considered places to be, to look at what the possibilities they might have, what they might offer. And I'm quite interested in the kind of stories that are in those spaces, what if by sort of sitting and thinking about them, what's their history, what's their archaeology, what's their backstory. So, I mean, it absolutely depends on the context, it depends on what you're trying to do.
Is it a process of giving meaning to a place? Become a space? Sometimes
it can be that, sometimes it's more about, it's more functional. You know, is this the right, can I make the work I want to make here? And if I decide I'm going to make it here, in this space, what's it offering me? What can I use? How can I use it in a way that is interesting? So, I mean, I just think it's not rule-based in that sense. It's very much about an instinct. You know, I did the show that you talked about that won the awards in England. When I walked into this room, it had a window, and the window looked out over the station. And I just knew that this play that we were doing, which was actually a Jacobean tragedy, so it was a 17th century play that we were modernising, and we were doing it in this sort of theatre building, which had a window, and the window looked over the station. And I said, I don't know why, but there's going to be a scene on the station, and the audience are going to look out of the window at the station. And it was just my gut feeling. And that's when I thought, we're going to use this space. This is the space we will use. And we did, and it was very successful. And we had to get permission from the station to do it, you know. But there was action on the station, which the audience watched as if they were watching a film, a live film. But from if you like, the stage area, they looked down. Action happened on the station. And then the performers came back, and we saw them crossing the road, then they disappeared, then they came up the stairs and into the room. So there's kind of, that possibility I find really exciting. Yeah.
Okay, a lot more things can be told. Ask them. She's a treasure of knowledge, you ought to know that. But the time constraints, we are very thankful for you to spend this much time with us. And anyway, this book is with us.
That's great. I'm so pleased it's useful, because we put a lot of thought into it, and I hope it's, yeah.
So on behalf of IFTS and School of Astronomy, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.